We will call to order the Board of County Commissioners for the purpose of agenda review for next week's business session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer. Here. Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Click is absent. Commissioner Osterhaus.
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Chairman Abbott.
Here. We do have a quorum present. Would the clerk please read the proposed consent agenda items?
Item number 1, consider approving the March 15, 2018 business session minutes. Item number 2, consider approving agreement with KCP&L to relocate electrical utilities necessary for the 199th Street Shoulder Safety and Structural Improvement Project between Homestead Lane and Gardner Road at an estimated cost not to exceed $142,920.26.
26 cents.
Any question on number 2? All right, that will remain on consent. Next item.
Item number 3, application number SEPDP 3369. Consider a request from Dan Knight applicant and Mark Calvin Dunn landowner for a preliminary development plan plat for 5 residential lots, Blue River Estates, on 19 acres zone PRU 1A, planned residential urban single family 1A district.
Jay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Leipzig, Planning Development Codes Director. This item is brought before you. It was approved by the Southeast Zoning Board. You might recall this item was before you previously a couple of weeks ago. However, at the zoning board meeting, on February 7th, there was some additional discussion about traffic concerns along Kenneth Road. So we had a neighborhood meeting on March the 21st, and so the applicant requested a continuance for action until next week. So this item was unanimously approved by the zoning board, recommended for approval by staff. And at the neighborhood meeting, really the concerns did not concern this particular plat. It's only a five plat subdivision, but mainly traffic concerns along Kenneth Road, and really they were enforcement issues.
Okay. But the applicant is ready to move forward then?
Yes, that's correct.
Questions? All right, well, this is a zoning item. It will remain on action. Next.
Thank you.
Item number 4, consider approving the application and data hosting agreement with Douglas County, Kansas.
Yes, Chris.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Chris Schneeweiss with the County Manager's Office. What you have before you today is an application and data hosting agreement for us to host the My Resource Connection application for Douglas County, Kansas. A little history. My Resource Connection is an in-house application that Johnson County developed. It's not a vendor purchase product. It's something the county has been working on and developed starting back in 2008. It allows us to better serve our citizens by allowing staff to know when they're providing multiple services or working with the same individual, so they can do more collaborative approach working with that individual. And because other jurisdictions would like to do the same, this allows them to do so without having to deal with the capacity issues of building something similar. So what they're going to do is pay us to host the application on their behalf. The benefit to Johnson County is we get full cost recovery by doing this, but at the same time, once we have all the data in one location, it also allows us to look at that and see, are there multiple, mutual clients that maybe are Douglas County residents that are receiving services on our end, and then the same for them. But initially, the application you're looking at here is solely for us to just provide that service to start off with. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Mr. Chairman, this can go on consent as far as I'm concerned, but I think Chris is underselling the potential of this because, as I understand it, we're also in negotiations of some sort with some other local governments. So this could almost be a profit center for us, as well as an operational benefit of making sure that clients are served fully and appropriately, if I'm saying that correctly.
That is correct, and just to comment on what Commissioner Ashcraft said, we are in conversations right now and reviewing agreements with both the City of Kansas City, Missouri, as well as the unified government.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, consent?
That's fine.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's great.
So noted. Next item.
Item number 5, resolution number 017-18. Consider modifying the current county assistance road systems eligible route list.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kent Lage, Urban Services Division, Public Works. The resolution before you is consideration to add 14 road segments to the Board of County Commissioner approved list of roads segments eligible for CARS funding. Initially, a list of 34 road segments were submitted by the cities. Staff reviewed those, have come up with a list in front of you. This list is being recommended to you by the Technical Review Committee, which is comprised of a representative from each of the cities in Johnson County. The primary focus, three primary focus we had when we looked at what road segments we might add. One was if it looked and acted like a thoroughfare, either now or in the future as development occurs. Second was to support the development that will be occurring in the future. And then a third item we considered was if it was a small segment that either extended an existing CARS route or connected to CARS routes. And with that, I'd stand for questions.
Okay, so it's really an add-on to the current policy as far as new streets qualifying for CARS support?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Other questions? Any reason not to put it on consent? All right, so noted.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item number 6, consider authorizing a phased implementation for evening flex route transit services on Metcalf Avenue and 75th Street on or after July 1, 2018, an amount not to exceed $300,000.
Mr. Otto.
Good morning, Aaron Otto with the County Manager's Office, and thank you, Linda. I'm sorry we didn't write a longer issue statement for you to get to, I think, the last one. Today we're here to follow up on an item that was discussed a little while ago regarding the past RAR for transit. And what we're looking at and making the request for today is to add additional service, not a new route, but additional service down Metcalf Avenue and also on 75th Street. After conversations with the Overland Park Chamber and some other stakeholders, it seems that a phased-in approach would make the most sense in this case. What we're seeing is incredible development taking place, especially between 71st Street and about 95th Street when it comes to new dwellings, apartments being built. Right now, there are 7 new developments underway with over 970 dwellings being constructed and leased and occupied. And so what we're making a request for today is to start additional service in the evening on the weekdays down Metcalf and on 75th Street starting around July 1st, adding 2 more routes running 1 hour each, and then sometime around October adding in 2 more routes after that in the evening as well on those 2 current routes. This is, again, budgeted dollars that you have approved in the past, and one of the requests was that we bring this forward once we're ready to kind of go live with it, and that's what we're here to bring back for you today. There's some ridership estimates that are part of this. This has gone to the Johnson County Transit Council a couple of times for discussion, and they support the implementation and looking at this, adding these 4 ultimately new service trips towards, through the course of this year. That is something they've endorsed along with county staff and the ATA staff. So that's just a little bit. I know you've got executive session and some other items coming up, but that's just a little briefing about what's in front of you, a little summary of it.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could get a little bit more information, Aaron, offline, we can do it over the course of the next week, just a little more information about fares and costs and drilling down just a little bit further and how this is all structured. And then I wanted to ask you if you were feeling okay today.
I appreciate your concern. I share it as well.
Okay. Just checking. Rock jug. Okay.
Mr. Osterhaus.
Aaron, can you talk just briefly about, and remind me, it's 3 years we've seen increased ridership on this route?
Yes, sir. Correct? Thank you. Yeah. Great question. So to use Metcalf as an example, and there has been enhanced services during the day on Metcalf, we've seen ridership in 2015 go from about 33,000 up to 42,000 in the last 3 years. So that's a 27% increase. And then on 75th Street, going from 23,000 up to 27,000. So that's a overall about 17% increase. And the thing to kind of keep in mind is that's against a pretty steady headwind, both in the region, where there's a little bit of a decline in ridership overall in public transit, and then nationally, where you may have seen a couple articles recently where there's a double-digit decline over the last few years in use of mass transit and public transit.
Okay, other questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow on, Mr. Brown may be asking this, but I just was wondering, you've got some metrics here in terms of anticipated ridership going forward. I'd be interested in knowing what you anticipate your collections will be as it relates to total operating costs. If you've got a target of 50%, 90%, 10%, you sometimes do that. I know Dick is hiding behind the podium, so I won't say big box buses, but just to try to get a sense of the cost on that. And then one clarification on the last paragraph under the analysis, it talks about reaching out to existing employers, and I commend you for that. That's a good strategy, but will that include seeing if those employers will be offering any kind of direct or indirect contributions, for example, buying bus passes for their employees, or maybe even direct subsidies to make sure that ridership or that service is provided to them? Will that be part of the conversation, or is that something separate?
And Josh is following up on some of those, so I'm going to let him, if you don't mind, Josh Powers, speak to that as well.
Commissioner Josh Powers, Business Liaison. Yes, you're absolutely correct. That's part of our ongoing marketing plan for all of our routes. We want to reach out to all employers that we serve the areas and try to get them to buy into helping us sell passes both to employers and other stakeholders. So yes, that's correct.
I thought we talked about that, but it wasn't mentioned here, and I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you for calling it out. I'm going to turn it over to Dick on the first part of your question.
On the big box buses?
The other part.
Thank you, Commissioners. For cost estimating purposes, we have taken a conservative approach and assumed only a 10% recovery from the actual customers and fares. We would hope to do better than that, but to keep the cost and the estimates conservative, we've assumed only 10% recovery.
Okay.
Josh, I don't know whether you can answer this question, or Aaron, but this was part of the job connector that we tried to address here a year or two ago. Have there been changes in the route structure since those original routes were put in place, or are we still at the same point?
Chairman, yes, you're correct. That was an effort going to the fiscal 2016 year. What we did there is we increased frequency on the Metcalf and 75th corridors. The routes are structured the same as far as where they travel, but because of the request for additional resources in 2015 for the 2016 budget year, we did increase frequency on 75th Street from 2-hour headways to 1-hour headways, and on Metcalf from an hour headway in the peaks to 30 minutes in the peak and hour service during the rest of the day. So the change there is how many times the buses are making the trip.
And those have been determined to be efficient use of those additional times?
Yes, sir. I think that's reflected in the increased ridership.
Okay. All right. Mr. Allen.
I support this, and just a couple points. Johnson County Transit and the Kansas City Transit Authority are looking at overall routes in Johnson County, and I assume some adjustments will be made on those routes. And what I like about this particular route is the density that was mentioned about the additional units being built on Metcalf. And when you go on 75th Street in Merriam, Lenexa, and Shawnee, there is several apartments, multifamily units there, and just to have a more robust transit system, some part of the county, this is on a limited basis, to build the synergy, and people know that if they don't have the ability to drive and they have more consistent transit service, it'll help the overall transit system. But unfortunately, in our county, we're so spread out, but this is an area where there is more density and more apartment dwellers that hopefully by adding these routes, they'll make more commitment that people have a more consistent view that they can rely on public transportation. So in my opinion, it's a good area to add those routes and build our system up.
Okay, any other questions? Consent or action? All right, we'll put this one on consent if there's no objection. All right, thank you. Are there any other items, Ms. Barnes?
No, sir.
All right. Well, that concludes our agenda review, and we continue in recess. So our executive session will start at 11:15. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.